Welcome to a world where particles, vibrations, and light collide, a place where leading industry experts and healers come together to discuss controversial topics that will challenge your beliefs and expand your mind. From quantum physics to metaphysics, no topic is off limits, but this is not your typical podcast.
Is that the solution for the frustration? Is to be in your integrity?
Yes.
All
yes.
right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Always be in your integrity. And in your integrity, you understand that it is what it is. Energy is until it's not, right? Energy is flowing into your body until it stops flowing because it becomes so clogged up, and then disease begins, right? So be in your integrity. When somebody's saying something that you totally disagree with, don't sit in your mind and go, what an idiot, right? Just say, wow, they're really convicted on how they feel. That's amazing. Bless them in their thoughts. Don't be judgmental in their thoughts. Bless them for having the power to feel the way they feel, even if it's different from you.
It's a show guaranteed to make you question your assumptions and push you to expand your horizons. For those who are already fascinated or passionate about the work of Patti Conklin, this show will give you an inside look into the mind of one of the industry's most renowned figures in vibrational mediation. With over 28 years of experience and a long list of big-name collaborations, Patti's insights and perspectives will inspire and challenge even the most seasoned practitioners. And if you're the skeptic who doesn't believe in vibrational mediation, this show is for you. Healers, doctors, and scientists are just a few of the professions represented by our fascinating visitors that bring their unique perspective to every episode. Join us on this journey into the world of healing within and adventure inside. Our mission is to inspire, challenge, and enlighten our audience with thought-provoking conversations and fascinating guests from a wide range of fields who can shed new light on important issues facing society today. Join us for each episode if you're ready to explore and learn about the latest developments at the intersection of cutting-edge science, spirituality, and self-improvement. Enter a world where waves, particles, and light all meet. Enter the world of healing within and adventure inside.
Hi, everyone. This is Patti Conklin. Thank you for another edition of Healing Within and Adventure Inside. I'm so thankful that you're here with me, and my guest today is beautiful and awesome, and I can't wait to have her tell us her story and ask some questions and get to know her a little bit better. And so I've got the honor of having Judith Johnson with me here today in the studio, and just so happy, Judith, that you're here and joining us. I can't say she's a city girl because she's actually an upstate girl. She's just on the fringe there. And so we got two peas in a pod here. We got two upstate women for you folks to listen to today. And I think upstate women have a lot to say. Judith, tell us about you.
Oh my goodness. Where to start? First of all, I'm 74. I've had a lot of experiences in my life that have taught me enormously. And I would have to say that my greatest teacher is my own experience. Yes, I have degrees and I have 2 doctorates, another master's, and blah, blah, blah. But I'm one of those people who really believes deeply in experience as the best teacher. Yes. I grew up in a family that was emotionally disconnected, had tremendous amount of sadness and loneliness in my childhood. And I had a traumatic experience in the womb. It's like I came in this life with trauma.
With trauma, ready to get into work, right?
Yeah, I was working in the womb. I'm just going to give this one reflection. Imagine being this little baby in a womb, and the inside of the womb was covered with fibroid tumors growing inward, like cauliflower florets. So I was in constant battle for space.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a 50-50 chance. Yeah, 50-50 chance that I would survive. 90% chance that I would be grossly deformed and all kinds of challenges.
Right.
And I came out with 10 fingers, 10 toes, and all my organs inside my body.
And a beautiful face to boot. So yeah.
So that's how I arrived. And a lot of, one of the things I've noticed is that all of us, I was going to say, if we're lucky, we get challenges that it bring us into growth patterns. Okay. I personally believe that a lot of this is defined prior to embodiment, that we have karmic paths that we're here to walk, that, that we set up this great plan about, okay, here's the perfect parents, here's the perfect historical moment and all for this person to do this work. And then boom, in we come and we forget the whole plan. We have no knowledge of the plan, but it's there. And so I've had a very ambitious karmic plan.
Yeah.
And very early on, I would say at around the age of 10, my curiosity about consciousness began. My mother gave me a book of the world's great religions, and I kept reading these about different religions. I was raised Roman Catholic. My father was Lutheran. And, it was all I knew. Except then I found out that my parents had friends who were Protestant and Catholic, and there was one Jewish couple, and everybody knew that. And that seemed to be important to them.
Yeah.
And, I started seeing this whole world of rejection of anybody different from you.
Yeah.
And yet we're being told you're supposed to love each other.
Yep. That oxymoron that just continues. Yeah.
It just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And as I started reading this book, I found out that all of these religions all basically have guidelines about how to live, but all the guidelines are about how to live inside here and then to go out into the world from that, the state of being, as opposed to the state of doing.
Yes.
Okay, so that gave me my first clue about consciousness. And so I've been voraciously reading everything I could about wisdom teachings from around the world, understanding about consciousness and all of that, to understand how do we get people to shift the energetic pattern of their lives from living in reaction, okay,
yes,
to things outside, to coming into a connection inside and living from that place. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. In fact, Mark Matusik, I give him a lot of credit. He brought forward a lot of my awareness of, for example, the issue of the mother's gaze. And it talks about the how the bonding with a child, again, the idea of who am I in this world? Because, we've come in, we've had this connection to our mothers. They cut this cord out, out we come, they cut a cord and we are a separate being.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where 80% of our perception is visual.
Yes.
And it's all, I don't see inside, I see only outside.
Right. Yes.
you know? And then I get you get your mother's gaze, and it's either affirming or disaffirming, and your mother or whoever that is there.
Yeah.
But you're completely dependent for your survival on other people serving your needs.
Yes.
Okay. And then comes in the level of the ego. And it goes from I need to I want.
I want. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we end up searching for love in all the wrong places out there in the world. And so in my own life, one of the patterns that I went through was acted out in terms of body weight. I did not know that I had an endocrine imbalance, in my body that was causing this, but I literally gained and lost over 100 pounds 4 times in my life.
Wow. Wow.
And the cruelty of it's kind of like, speaking of the gaze of total strangers. When you are obese, there is an invisibility, and there is the judgment of rejection. that is, it's like you're so visible and you're so invisible at the same time.
Yes.
And for me, it was extremely painful. And it took me many, many years before I finally figured out the connection. And this is interesting in terms of your work. I went to the chiropractor on my knees one day. I mean, in absolute excruciating pain. My back was out, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, it was awful. And she checked me and she said, Judith, your back is in perfect alignment. I really would like you to go and see this person. And she sent me to a woman who does neuro-emotional technique, which bypasses the body's, the brain's BS.
Yes.
And gets to the truth carried in your body.
That's right.
Yeah. And what I discovered through that work, and I worked with her for several years on this, was that through the eating, that dysfunction that I was having with food, I was storing all of my anxiety in my lower back.
Yeah. Wow.
That's where it was. It was in the lower right quadrant of my back. And it took a number of years to process that all out. Right. And that was part of how I got balanced and in a place by handling the emotional, letting that stuff out and processing it, I was able to come into balance of being in this body.
Yeah.
And also getting the information from the endocrinologist that this particular body can only handle 1,000 calories a day.
Yeah. Wow. Who knew? I mean, it's really that finding out, right? It's not just the emotional, but finding out what this body is capable of doing, and for us specifically with our soul path. And what our soul is meant to be experiencing and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, great information.
Yeah. So this body, I got to take up residence finally in a loving way in my body, as opposed to constantly rejecting it the way the rejection was being mirrored out in the world.
Right.
And so that was a very profound, thing for me to come into loving of myself in my body and loving its challenge.
Yes.
Loving its challenge along with it.
Yeah.
But coming to, I don't know how much of my story you want me to tell you, but
what I'd love to know is, when did you realize, after having gone through the dysfunction of childhood and so forth, when did you realize that you not just looked outward, but had the potential of helping people? I mean, was that later on through college, or was it earlier in life? When did that?
It was interesting, because I think I first knew it when I was actually working in corporate America. I worked in the field of strategic planning in large corporations, and I would go around the company and give lectures and talks to employees to help them understand that what strategic planning was and how important it is to the thinking that goes behind the numbers, that we don't just project numbers, that we have to really understand the marketplace, blah, 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 and deploy the assets of the company, which are people, money, and time. And I found myself very at ease, and I always am prepared in what I do, because I deeply study what I look at.
Right.
And I was never scared. I mean, I sat with the chairman of the board and the board of directors to explain to them what was going on in the numbers in our company in ways that they had no idea. In fact, to the point where I told them things that they immediately, this was before computers, but they immediately destroyed every copy of my presentation after the meeting so it wouldn't get out to the press.
Wow.
So, I was always, my curiosity has always guided me. And I'm a truth seeker. I think I inherited from my mother this ability to see BS 10 miles away and be allergic to it. So it's a little challenging for me in the world I'm living in right now.
I hear that. Absolutely. Yeah.
But there was comfort. And I think also that as I read more and more and more about consciousness, I realized that we had a pathology. We have a social pathology systemic, because this process where we, and with the mirror neurons in the brain, we soak into ourselves perceptions of ourselves and the world from others.
True.
And as I, read and all, then I thought, well, wait a minute. It's kind of like when you open the hamburger and where's the beef? Where's the point at which they tell us, okay, now I want you to get to know yourself.
Yeah.
Come inside. There's something else going on here besides your ego.
Yeah.
And that huge missing piece. Early on I have been studying a body of spiritual teachings for over 40 years that have probably had the greatest impact on how I understand myself and life in the world. And that's the teachings of John Roger. Mm-hmm. He founded something called the Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness. And he's died now, but his teachings are so clear in understanding that we are souls. We are really spiritual beings here in this world.
Yes.
And for example, right now I'm working on my next book, which is called Being You, a user's manual. And it deals with things like that. Like when you use the word I, what do you mean?
Yes.
Because most people mean, well, me. Jude.
Yeah.
I dress like this. This is my body and this is my personality. No. So really helping people to understand that we come into these. This is my earthly vehicle here that I'm riding around in.
Absolutely.
And functioning here.
Yeah. So when did you write your first book? What brought your awareness into writing?
Frustration that there was nothing there my own personal need. So my first two books are about the wedding ceremony. I was ordained as an interfaith minister in 1985. 1991, I began officiating weddings. And I discovered that, I went out to see what's there, because that was just the point where people were starting to do personalized wedding ceremonies out in the world outside of religious traditions.
Exactly.
So I'm like, okay, how do you do this? Because and I searched, and there was nothing. I think there was one book that I liked that was out there, and nothing much. So I decided, well, I'm going to write about this. I'm going to put this together. I've never been stopped by the fact that I haven't done it before.
Right.
But because I get driven, and I laugh and tell people I'm very obedient. It's like I get this idea and it feels right to me, and I get busy and off I go.
And you do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote this. My first book was called The Wedding Ceremony Planner, the essential guide to the most important part of your wedding day. And it's still out there doing wonderful things, helping people. Yeah. And then the second one I wrote is called How to Write Meaningful Wedding Vows, because in officiating hundreds, thousands of weddings, I came to realize how so many people don't even understand what a wedding vow is.
Right.
It's not about telling you how pretty you are and how you make me feel so good. Yeah. It's about, I am taking a primary role in your life. Right. I am vowing to be your partner through good times and bad.
Yeah.
And it's saying, here's how I promise to do that. Here's how I promise to love you, to honor you, and to cherish you.
Right.
So I needed to get that said. So my second book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Book.
So there you go. Awesome.
Yeah. My third book, Making Peace with Death and Dying. This just came out in March.
Yeah.
And this book is the fulfillment of a deathbed promise to my mother. My mother and I shared a home the last 9 years of her life. and from age 80 to 89. And so there was this shifting of her being an independent person to needing more and more and more and more and more help.
Yes.
And there's, I think it's something like 53 million caregivers in this country, unpaid caregivers in our country right now.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is something that people don't understand about end of life. People, people don't just all of a sudden, boom, die. More and more of us go into a decline. And my mother's example was, was common in that sense. And so for 9 years, I was a primary caregiver in a world that I knew nothing about. And on her deathbed, she grabbed my wrist and she made me promise that I would write about what we learned about that whole journey, about being in a world that is uncomfortable, that can't even say the word death.
Right. Absolutely.
Can't even say the word. And so it took me 15 years. This book, it was 5 different books before it got to this point. I was searching for my voice and my message in this book. And I really wanted people to understand that, again, as I was speaking before about pathology in society, we have a pathology in our society around death.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Because we teach people to be afraid of death. And, it's kind of interesting if you step back and you think, okay, hold on a second, this is something that everybody's going to do. Okay.
None of us are going to get out of it. No.
And the best we can do as a society is teach everybody to be scared to death.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, what hits me as you're talking about this is the 9 months that you spend in your mother's womb sharing space, and the last 9 years of her life sharing space and being there. And I really agree. I mean, I think one of the assets we both have is just being able to be with people as they cross and be with their family and say, okay, if somebody calls and says, doctor said I'm going to die within 6 months, can you help me? And I look at their body, and if the suitcases are packed, I say, you know what, your doctor's correct. You will pass within the next 6 months. Taking your pain away is easy, but how can I help you find joy and be at peace over the, as much time as you have here, and make it that loving journey and experience, and take away that fear of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? It's like you're on to the next adventure. And I think that that's just a blessing that you're able to, that you've written a book on it, but also be able to go help people do that, because there's not enough practitioners and therapists who can go do that with people and be comfortable, right?
And when you said, when somebody gets told they have like 6 months to live, I was thinking to myself, I hope you suggest that they connect with hospice, because I think personally, I mean, when my mom and I brought in hospice, I felt like we were abducted by angels. It was wonderful. And I want people to understand that hospice, what typically happens because we're afraid of death is we hear the word hospice and it sounds hopeless, and we want to run in the other direction because we still want people to pretend that there's hope. But if there isn't hope, then the hope that you have to shift your desire for hope to, I hope for a joyful ending.
Exactly.
And so you want to bring in people who are experts at this phase of life.
Yes.
And I was so relieved because they were there for me as well as my mom.
Absolutely.
It was beautiful.
It's so important. My niece is finishing up, and she's becoming an end of life physician, care physician. And that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to make it a process that people don't have to go into fear, that they know that they're supported. And hospice is a truly wonderful organization, and the people who volunteer for it are amazing, because not just the person who's ready to transition needs support, but the family members, you. having that support for yourself is so critical. So what was the key component to the book? I know it's the story between you and your mother, but what is it that really stood out for you as you were writing it?
Well, and I call it a practical guide to liberating ourselves from the death taboo. So the key component is really helping people to understand it's not your fault that you're afraid of death. You have been taught to be afraid of death, but there are other ways to relate to death. Let me show you. So I want people to understand that we have this pathology in our society. Here's how it operates. Here are the costs and consequences. Mm-hmm. And then to get people to look at the alternative of how to function in relationship to death. Yeah. And to neutralize, and a lot of it has to do also, I keep coming back to that thing about the ego, because the ego is out there running in binary consciousness of right, wrong, good, bad, I like it, I don't like it. And we have to raise up truly loving one another is from a level of consciousness that's higher than that.
Yes.
To get there, we have to quiet down the ego about this is what I want. And we have to raise up into the vulnerability. And I think vulnerability is one of the most underrated capabilities that we have, is to accept the vulnerability that we are not in control of everything. And there are things that are going to happen that we don't like, but it doesn't mean that we have to, go into fear. It means we can still do our best.
Right.
You still come and do your best.
Yeah. One of the things that I say in lectures and people laugh, but I'm serious. It's like, you're not in control. Get over it. Exactly. Enjoy your life and moment to moment to moment. Don't attempt to control what's going to happen tomorrow. And you can't change what happened, 5 minutes ago. So, enjoy this moment. And when we can let go of control, and like you said, vibrate at that higher consciousness,
right,
and become vulnerable and just say, it's okay. No matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. Yeah. And bring it on. Yeah.
And to be vulnerable enough to experience and communicate your own sense of vulnerability. So, for example, it used to drive me crazy. I also am a chaplain at my hospital, and you see these families who have no idea how to deal with supporting their loved one, and they walk in the room of somebody who is obviously dying. Okay. And they'll say, "Oh, honey, your color looks good today."
Exactly.
And it's like, how about it would be so much more useful if you could go in and hug the person and say, "I'm so sad that we have so little time left together. I love you so much. What can I do to make today easier for you?"
Exactly. I had a client years ago, and I just adored her. And she had a little 2-year-old, she and her husband, and she was going to pass. And I flew out to be with her and, to just not be there for her passing, but for a couple of days before. And I just remember, one thing she loved about life was food. And she had been so restricted with food during her chemo process and attempting to heal and so forth. And so the day I was leaving, she's like, "I'm hungry." And I'm like, "Well, eat." And so she calls the hospital cafeteria. She's like, "I want spaghetti. I want, fried chicken. I want lasagna." And she's just ordering and all these sweets and everything. And her husband looks at her and says, "Honey, that's, food that you haven't eaten in years." And she looks at him, she's like, "Shut up, I'm dying. I can eat what I want." And it was just awesome. She really let go of her fear. And he said, "What do I do now?" And I said, "Crawl in bed with her and start telling each other funny stories of your lifetime together."
Yes.
So that you guys have got that kind of memory as you move on. But, she really had a healthy, but people weren't walking in going, "Oh, you look better today." And, the words that people want to say, and yet what is right. Exactly. And so it's being at peace with it.
Yeah. And it's about becoming brave. Can I read something?
Absolutely.
I want to read a quote. This is coming to mind in this conversation from Pema Chodron that I quote in the book, and because she talks about existential maturity. And I think that that's one of the essential messages of my book. So here it is. She says, the fear of death is at once culturally pervasive, yet deeply private. The process of developing existential maturity involves recognizing and diminishing, this is, I guess, me speaking here, what Pema Chodron refers to as ubiquitous anxiety, the underlying fear of uncertainty and not knowing what is happening or what is going to happen. It is a desire to feel safe, secure, and comfortable having all the answers in the world. Yet our existential situation does not provide us with any certainty. Developing existential maturity requires moving our fears and anxieties to the background while enabling our love, courage, compassion, and authenticity to come to the foreground. It is what Pema Chodron calls cultivating bravery, so that we can be okay and not shut down in the face of our fears. When we choose to develop our existential maturity, we also make a personal contribution to the collective process of transforming the culture of death from one of death denial to one where we encounter death in a way that lovingly supports us as individuals, families, and as a society.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful and so true. So true. So tell our viewers where they can find you and be able to get that book.
Absolutely. They can find me at judithjohnson.com. And my book that can be found on Amazon, the bookshop, all the online places. Any bookshop should have my book. And if they don't, ask them to please order it for you. Okay. And I just want to also mention that a lot of my work now is, in addition to writing, is I mentor people. And the fundamental purpose of my work is to help people raise the level of consciousness from which they are living their lives.
Yeah.
Because life is short, and it's such a shame to spend it in your ego. When you can get up to a level of loving and caring and kindness, that's where you're really going to find the treasures inside yourself.
Yeah, I so agree. I think when we can reach the point of nothing has to be right, nothing has to be wrong, it simply is, and we can look at it without the judgment, is just so critical and so important. And Judith Johnson, you're just lovely.
Right back at you.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to reading your book, and I'd love to have you back on after I do that and spend some time with it, because it's important. It's important where we are in today's world. There's just too much fear, and people need to have this grounding in reading your book. So judithjohnson.com, folks. And Judith, thank you so much for being a guest today on Healing Within and Adventure Inside. And I just give many thanks to you.
It's a pleasure. I'm honored that you invited me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to a world where particles, vibrations, and light collide, a place where leading industry experts and healers come together to discuss controversial topics that will challenge your beliefs and expand your mind. From quantum physics to metaphysics, no topic is off limits, but this is not your typical podcast.
And that's what's so critical. What you're thinking is still going inside of your body. Just because you don't say the words doesn't mean that it's not so, because you still think, right? And so we've gotten to the point where, well, as long as I keep my mouth shut, I'm okay. No, you're not. You're still storing up your body. You are still putting emotions in your body because of your need to be right. And if we have no right or wrong, then what is? And that's all there is, right? It's either energy or it's not. Whether you're speaking the words, whether you're thinking the words, whether you're thinking it, still matters. We've done so many more cellulars because people have stored so much more in the last 8 years than I've seen in my 28 years of doing this work. Because we think it. even if we don't speak it. And we're still filling our bodies with things that are conditional.
It's a show guaranteed to make you question your assumptions and push you to expand your horizons. For those who are already fascinated or passionate about the work of Patti Conklin, this show will give you an inside look into the mind of one of the industry's most renowned figures in vibrational mediation. With over 28 years of experience and a long list of big-name collaborations, Patti's insights and perspectives will inspire and challenge even the most seasoned practitioners. And if you're the skeptic who doesn't believe in vibrational mediation, this show is for you. Healers, doctors, and scientists are just a few of the professions represented by our fascinating visitors that bring their unique perspective to every episode. Join us on this journey into the world of healing within and adventure inside. Our mission is to inspire, challenge, and enlighten our audience with thought-provoking conversations and fascinating guests from a wide range of fields who can shed new light on important issues facing society today. Join us for each episode if you're ready to explore and learn about the latest developments at the intersection of cutting-edge science, spirituality, and self-improvement. Enter a world where waves, particles, and light all meet. Enter the world of healing within and adventure inside.